Now we go to breaking news.
We're following breaking news in the Karen Reed murder retrial. Jurors have been deliberating on day 3 now for over 4 hours. Earlier, jurors had 3 questions they wanted to ask Judge Beverly Cannoni, and we're about to hear from the judge in just a minute here.
Yeah, those 3 questions concerned the time of the OUI, interviews as evidence, and a conviction. Let's listen in.
Can't agree on one charge. Is it a hung jury on all 3 charges or just one charge? I got some input from the defense at sidebar, essentially saying if we could just ignore it. We can't ignore it. To me, it's a theoretical question, and we don't answer theoretical questions. I tell the jurors that they're not to be concerned with the consequences of their verdict, and that's exactly what they're doing here. So I would propose just writing simply, this is not a question I can answer on this, and sending it back.
The defense position is not certainly not the question for it. I agree. We can't ignore your question. However, I think that it is apropos, given the timing of when that question came in, literally before the court had answered the other 3 note card questions. I think that it would be appropriate to send a quick note just asking them, given the fact that there's some clarity in your other questions, does this answer your question? In other words, can you proceed without any further input by the court regarding that second question?
So that made sense initially, but why ask them, do I really need to answer it, to then tell them I'm not answering it?
Because I think at some point, they need to know what the law is. It's a reporting question. In other words, I don't see it as theoretical, as the court indicated. I see it a little bit differently, which is what are our options? And the options are built in the law, not in theory. If they come back with a verdict on more than one count, but they're hung on a separate count, they are to report those 2 counts, whatever counts they came to a verdict on. So
that's for a later time, right? So this is at this point.
Right.
It's premature, it's hypothetical, it's theoretical. I understand your point. I think I disagree with you at this point. It may be something later. The way the question's worded, if I find this, if we do this. I'll hear from the Commonwealth.
We agree it's consequence related. Your first suggestion, I think, is most appropriate, and we would endorse that.
Yeah, I'm going to do that at this time, Mr. Jackson. I'm not going to have a back and forth with them. I'm simply going to say, because it's true, it's the law, that this is not a question I can answer.
Your Honor, I would strongly suggest that we find some other way. If that question continues to remain, then they're not going to ask that question. I don't think the court can say, or should say, I can't answer the question, because the court can answer that question. The court absolutely can answer it. I would simply say, this question is not before the court without further information, or something like that. Not the court can't answer that question, because if that question remains in their minds, we're going to end up in the exact same position that we were in last year.
There are other steps that can be taken to perhaps prevent that.
Whatever those steps are, I think the first step down the wrong path is to say, throw our hands up and say, well, we can't answer that question. Well, we know we can answer it.
So I don't know if I want to put you in an uncomfortable position, Ms. Giannetti. I'm inclined to answer the question the way I stated.
Could we have 2 minutes to confer with counsel, Your Honor?
1 minute.
How about 1 minute? You guys are 10 minutes late.
We just need 1 minute. Thank you.
All right, you are listening here to, well, as we watch a brief sidebar among the attorneys there for Karen Reed. The question that's come in concerns if the jury is unable to reach a unanimous decision, essentially a hung jury. What happens then? And the judge has written back, or is saying that she intends to write back. That is not a question she can answer. Her theory behind this, or her reasoning behind it, being that she says, Rachel, it's a theoretical question, that the jury is not to be concerned with the outcome of the verdict. But the defense here very clearly saying, no, hold on. The court does have the ability to answer the question, and they are pushing for that. Because, as you heard Alan Jackson say, they don't want to end up in the same spot they were in after the first trial. Let's take you back and listen in.
I don't have a principled objection to the court's language that that we not answer the question at this time. I would simply ask that the court answer the question as you suggested just now in open court. It's premature to address this question at this time.
No. What do you say, Mr. Brennan? My response was this is not a question I can answer for the reasons I stated. It's theoretical, and we tell jurors that they cannot be concerned with the consequences of their verdict, and that's exactly what you would be asking me to endorse. What's the Commonwealth's position on the proposed?
I agree with your first suggestion.
Yeah. I'm going to send it in like this. Your objection's noted.
Your Honor, if I could make my record a little bit clearer, the court's indicating that it doesn't answer questions about the consequences of the juror's verdict. That would be punishment. Of course you can't answer a question like that. This is not the consequences of the verdict. It's how do they report a verdict. So I think saying I can't answer this is sending a false message to the jury. If the court would simply indicate this is not appropriate for me to address at this time, that assuages all concerns. Certainly assuages our concerns and it protects Ms. Reed's rights. I think that...
Well, I think what I could add is this is a theoretical question, not a question I can answer. That does the same thing. Is there an objection? I understand, Mr. Jackson.
If the court could add the clause at this time.
Is there an objection to me putting this is a theoretical question, not a question I can answer?
No objection.
Allow the court to finish writing, but at this point, that is over our objection.
I understand.
I just want to make sure the record is absolutely clear. That's over our objection. I don't think that's an appropriate answer to a very, very clear question that could be answered in an innocuous way that does not affect Ms. Reed's rights.
Okay.
This way it does.
Okay, it was a clear question that the defense first told me to ignore. So
I didn't tell you to ignore anything, Your Honor.
all right, we are all set. So let's send this in, please.
All right.
All right, you are listening here again to another jury question, a fourth jury question that's come in, and some clarity here. Our Ted Daniel following this very closely. The very beginning of the judge's comments were maybe clipped a little bit, so I want to let you know what the question was. It is, if we find not guilty on 2 charges, but can't agree on 1 charge, is it a hung jury on all 3 charges?
And Judge Beverly Cannoni basically calling this question a theoretical question, saying that she cannot answer the question. Alan Jackson, the defense attorney for Karen Reed, objecting, saying that it is too premature to address this kind of question at this time, too early, and that it's not an appropriate answer, calling it punishment actually to the jury.
Well, and so much of that stems, Rachel, from what happened in the first trial. Remember, everything that came out after was this idea that the jury may have had a unanimous decision on 1 or 2, but couldn't agree on 1, and all of a sudden you're in a mistrial situation. The defense wants to avoid that situation happening again, as do prosecutors. Very quickly, I do want to take you out to Ryan Breslin. He is live outside the courthouse along with the crowds that are there, largely in support of Karen Reed. You've listened to this as well. What's been the response from the crowd? Because we know they're all watching this streaming as well.
Yeah, Kel, I think that there is some confusion across the street from the crowd. You can see most people talking to each other or looking at their phones, trying to figure out what this could actually mean for Karen Reed. Could this mean a potential another mistrial like we saw in the first case? Should the jurors be able to reach verdicts on 2 counts and not a 3rd count? The judge called this premature, theoretical, and hypothetical. In her answer, she says that she was going to tell the jury that this is a theoretical question, not a question I can answer. You do have to wonder when exactly the jurors came up with this question, because we did know at the end, when jurors were leaving the room and the defense team and the prosecution was also leaving, that she asked that the defense and the Commonwealth come back at 1:30. At that point, jurors were sent back to continue their deliberation. They got their answers from the first 3 questions. So when did they write this new question and then send it to the judge? It must have been in that last hour when they were trying to figure out their answers, or got those answers to those first 3 questions, and then trying to go trying to figure out where do we go from here. Once again, we are waiting for Karen Read to exit the courthouse. You can see groups of media. They are standing by right now, all eyes focused on the entrance to Norfolk Superior Court, where Karen Read and her defense team will exit. We really haven't seen Hank Brennan much today. For the most part, we saw him walk in, but when it comes to leaving during the course of this trial, unless he goes out a different door, which is possible, there are other exits here, we really have not seen him come in and out the front of this. But we have seen the O'Keefe family. They have been showing a unified front today, all traveling together while we wait and watch for a verdict. So we have been recording them as they go in and out. They usually take this ramp in and out of Norfolk Superior Court, but they have not given any statements at all. Okay, let's take a listen and a look. Karen Read is coming out, Alan Jackson leading in the front. It's unclear whether or not she will be answering any questions. Sorry about that. We did not hear from her earlier. Alan Jackson just saying that they're not making any comments. Back. Karen, are you nervous that this could mean another mistrial?
Watch the poll. Watch the poll. Karen, can you read anything into the questions that we can't read?